Yeehaw, live. Hi, guys.
I think you're going to hear a lot about it in this. Stargate. So put that name down in your books because I think you're going to hear a lot.
Okay, I'll come back to that when the people are here. I'll play this first. Where do you go? Now we'll do that one.
Welcome to the Watchman channel. This channel is all about...
Hi, Di. I'm just going to do this one before I do the time travel one to get people to come here. I didn't realize it was going to be so late.
world news and Bible prophecy, pointing to the soon return of the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I am asking that if you can, to please help to financially support this ministry. If you feel led to pledge any amount of money, it would be extremely helpful and greatly appreciated. There is a PayPal link in the description box and in my pinned comment below. You can also donate using Cash App. My cash tag is $Watchman1963. Thank you all so much for your prayers and support. God bless.
The Linwood City Council in Washington State just appointed its newest member. This is Jessica Ann Roberts, a 32-year-old trans porn star with a cannibalism fetish. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Cannibalism. Jessica wrote about an uncontrollable desire to impregnate and eat women and was voted in unanimously.
Wow.
She said they were just trying to make a little cash on the side. This party's only getting started. In Oregon, a member of the state's health advisory council.
I'll pay you 2 beers, Di.
Hello, everybody. It's JD. I use they, them, and turtle for my pronouns. I'm in the Springfield, Eugene area, and I get to be a member of the council. Isaiah, would you like to go next?
She just said her pronouns turtle. I didn't even know you could do that. Turtle gender, also known as tortoise gender, is an identity used by people who feel a gendered connection to turtles. Fox News has reached out to Oregon's health authority for comment, and they told us that every council member's perspective is highly valued, even the turtles. And over in Vermont, a group called the Vermont Family Alliance met the State House to educate locals about transgenderism. Local trans activists got wind of this and said, "Not on my watch."
Exactly for that, to not try to censor or disrupt several discussion is not for censoring anyone's party. You are the ones who are actually
Things got so hectic that the sergeant of arms said, "Everybody out."
I'm losing control of the room and my ability to maintain a safe space for legislators, staff, and public. Approximately 5 minutes, I'm going to shut the doors and ask everyone to leave the room.
We now live in an Isaiah 5:20 world where evil is good and good is evil, where the sin of being a homosexual or transgender is openly celebrated and even glorified. One of the many signs that we are living in the end times is the epidemic of homosexuality that's sweeping the world today. Jesus said he would return at a time when society parallels the days of Lot, as we read in Luke 17:28-30. Likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot,
That's pretty true. We do resemble Sodom and Gomorrah. Sydney's Gay Pride March. It's just disgusting.
They drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. To find out what parallels our days with the days of Lot, we need to go back to the book of Genesis 19:1-5. Now the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground and said, "My lords, please turn aside your servants."
It's doing a glaring thing, guys. Got to fix it. Hang on.
Then you may rise up early and go on your way. They said, "No, we will spend the night in the town square." But he pressed them strongly. So they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house. And they called to Lot Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them. The term know them isn't a friendly handshake and how are you? It is to know them in a sexual way. What parallels our days with the days of Lot is homosexuality. Just as in the days of Lot, not only is homosexuality widely accepted today, but it's being taught to our kids, just like in Sodom, as we read in verse 4. The men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house. Young is the Hebrew word, nar, which means a boy or girl from the age of infancy to adolescence.
In April, the Supreme Court will hear a case involving parental rights. Citing religious objections, parents in Maryland sought to remove their children from school lessons featuring LGBTQ material. When school officials denied their request, the parents took their case to court.
The Montgomery County Schools' decision to include LGBTQ-themed storybooks in pre-K and elementary classrooms is fueling this intense legal battle, one that could test the boundaries of religious freedom and public education.
Love is love.
In this case, though, it's turning into more of a battle.
These are not books about sex.
The controversy started in 2022 after the school board approved several books for pre-K and kindergartners. The list included My Rainbow, about a Black transgender girl whose mother creates a special wig to match her identity. Uncle Bobby's Wedding, where a young girl worries about her uncle marrying another man.
F for feathers, for flags, and for fun.
And Pride Puppy, an alphabet book following a family and their dog at a pride parade.
Really important for us to center LGBTQ plus voices.
School officials insist this material forms a cornerstone of their inclusive education.
That commitment requires
Trump's come in and got rid of all this out of the schools. If they don't get rid of this out of the schools, he's going to take their funding off them. Pretty serious.
that we cultivate an environment where our LGBTQ plus students feel welcome and supported.
After being stopped from allowing their children to opt out of these lessons, a group of parents from diverse faiths, including Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, sued the Montgomery County Board of Education.
We just wanted the accommodation to say, listen, when there are certain teachings within MCPS that contradict our religious views, and there are subsequent discussions by untrained teachers on these topics, specifically for elementary school, that we felt that that was problematic.
Initially, the school district granted their request.
I'm here to tell them my 7-year-old daughter, she's not ready for this.
Then later reversed the decision, calling the books part of language arts, not sex education. They claim the material builds literacy and cultural awareness and does not provide explicit instruction on sexuality.
The board just forged ahead and cut the parents out of the process completely.
While lower courts have ruled against the parents twice, the case is now before the Supreme Court.
These are just books that happen to include...
Actually, Screwdriver would have been a better joke than Wrench.
LGBTQA plus characters.
In court papers, the school district compares the materials to classic fairy tales, arguing the storybooks are no more sex education than stories like Cinderella and Snow White.
Because curriculum and these administrative policies are set at the local level, it really does allow a lot of these school administrations to become sort of mini fiefdoms. And when they refuse, for example, the right of parents to opt out, they're really running these in a way that is essentially undemocratic at its very core.
Montgomery County is reportedly one of the few school districts nationwide that prohibits parental opt-outs on topics related to sexuality and gender.
All we wanted is the accommodation, not necessarily to ban the books or remove the books as it's been reported.
Experts warn the High Court's ruling could have far-reaching effects, potentially shaping how objectionable content is taught in public school classrooms.
In terms of what they have faced in Montgomery County and what potentially the Supreme Court could hold, it will implicate at what point may schools infringe.
Diane, I'm pretty sure the courts ruled on this and Trump got the vote. He can take their funding. I'm pretty sure this went to the Supreme Court already.
On the rights of parents, both in terms of teaching the children their own faith and also in directing in the upbringing of their children.
The Supreme Court's conservative majority recently expanded religious rights in key cases, one allowing a web designer to refuse projects conflicting with her beliefs, another strengthening protections for employees seeking accommodations. This case could also set a precedent for future disputes.
This is obviously a very significant case, and a significant case for what I call freedom of conscience, freedom of thought, freedom of belief. As a parent, are you now permitted in the United States of America to educate your children in accordance with your beliefs? Or are you obligated in a public school system that all of us are paying taxes to?
A lot of being stopped by the judges. I didn't know that, Diane. I thought they were sort of going Trump's way.
To have them indoctrinated, to say, okay, we have to be inclusive and we want all our students to feel welcome. But in that, you're absolutely training your children on acceptance of something the Bible is quite clear about. Here in America, we're in this debate and what culture do we want to have coming forth for the next generation? And what do we want our school systems to be involved in? Clearly, this is a lot more than reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're trying to enculturate them into this new cultural acceptance of gay lifestyles.
When the world crossed the line with gay marriage, those of us who are followers of Jesus Christ knew that sexual immorality would now progress into an anything goes mentality. After the gays got their right to marry, it wouldn't stop there. God gives a dire warning to anyone who would cause a child to sin, as we read in 18, 6 and 7. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Woe to the world because of offenses. Offenses must come. But woe to that man by whom the offense comes.
Where do Christians go? Should we all homeschool? Should we make sure our children go to Christian school so we can make sure that what they're being taught is in accordance with our belief?
Homosexuality is strongly condemned. Ezekiel 16:49-50. Look, this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. She and her daughter had pride, fullness of food, and abundance of idleness. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy, and they were haughty and committed abomination before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw fit. What was this prideful abomination committed before God? The answer is found in the book of Leviticus. Leviticus 18:22. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. Leviticus 20:13. If a man lies with a male as he lies with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. God gives mankind a dire warning for the acts of homosexuality in 2 Peter 2:6. And turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them to destruction, making them an example to those who afterward would live ungodly. God also offers forgiveness to those who are living a life of homosexuality, as we read in 1 Corinthians 6:9-11. Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived. Neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor the covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. And such were some of you, but you were washed, but you were sanctified, but you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus and by the Spirit of our God. Jesus said, as a sign of his coming and the end of the age, there would be an increase in deception, false Christs who will deceive many, wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom, famines, pestilences, earthquakes, Christian persecution, apostasy, false prophets, and lawlessness, causing the love of many to grow cold. Jesus said all of these signs would come like birth pains. Jesus was likening last days events to a woman in labor. As the labor progresses, the pains increase in both frequency and intensity until the baby finally comes. As we get closer to Jesus' return, all the signs
My cousin just left with the dog, Guy.
he gave us as a sign of his coming and the end of the age will become more frequent and more intense. All of these signs are manifesting around the world in our time. In the last days, the prophet Zechariah tells us Israel will be the focal point of world conflict, and he gives a dire warning to the nations who would dare come against Jerusalem. Zechariah 12:2 and 3. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, while all nations of the earth are gathered against it. This prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes.
IDF troops are back on the ground in Gaza as Israel expands its operation against Hamas. The Israeli military reports that Hamas was using the ceasefire to plan yet another invasion of Israel.
Prior to ending the ceasefire, Israel's security cabinet held an emergency meeting over signs the terror group was preparing another October 7th style attack.
For the first time in months, Hamas fired rockets towards Tel Aviv. The 3 rockets caused sirens to wail throughout southern and central Israel, threatening millions. In the meantime, Israeli troops are rolling back into Gaza, retaking areas they once controlled. IDF Sergeant Major Chaim Mailspin told CBN's Raj Nir Hamas and other terror groups were using the ceasefire to prepare for another invasion of Israel.
Our intelligence gave a very strong indication that during this regrouping time, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Jabhat al-Nusra, etc., wanted to actually do another invasion. Right now, during the ceasefire, this is what our intelligence sources said, use the little time they had during the ceasefire to do another invasion.
Israeli media reports that prior to Israel renewing the war, the security cabinet met to consider evidence Hamas was preparing a new ground invasion.
What we have seen them do is prepare for a terror attack against our troops in Gaza, but more importantly against our civilians in the communities outside of Gaza and the Western Negev. What we did is we took a preemptive strike on those terrorists, specifically those commanders, and on terror targets, removing those threats, and basically saying we will not accept this.
The IDF is pleading with civilians to get out of the combat zones.
Yesterday, the Israeli army dropped leaflets asking us to evacuate the area in Beit Hanun.
Israel's defense minister warns that it's going to get worse if the hostages are not freed and Hamas removed from power.
Unless all the Israeli hostages are released and Hamas is expelled from Gaza, Israel will act with forces never before seen. Take the U.S. President's advice. Return the hostages and expel Hamas, and other options will be presented to you, including relocating to other places in the world for those who wish. The alternative is utter destruction and devastation.
In Washington, the Trump administration says the new fighting could end right away if Hamas would accept the U.S. proposal to extend the ceasefire begun in January. An administration spokesperson warned the opportunity is still there, but it's closing fast. The State Department says what President Trump wants most is a permanent and real peace between the Israelis and Palestinians.
President Trump is not just wanting a peaceful day or a peaceful week. We have this window of this administration to change the trajectory of what has been decades and decades, coming up on 100 years of carnage that is now unacceptable.
President Trump called on Iran to stop arming the Houthi rebels in Yemen, promising to step up attacks until they are completely annihilated. As to Iran's nuclear program, Trump has reportedly given the regime in Tehran 2 months to negotiate a deal, making sure that
single night. Jeremiah 49, the prophecy of Elam, which could infer an Israeli attack upon Iran's nuclear program. Psalm 83.
Oh, just come through now.
Nations that border Israel want an attack on Israel in order to cut them off from being a nation. Ezekiel 38 and 39, known as the War of Gog and Magog. In this prophecy, a coalition of nations led by Russia, Iran, and Turkey will attack Israel in the last days in order to take Israel's wealth. Jesus said, as a sign of his coming and the end of the age, there would be civil wars. As we read in Matthew 24, 6 and 7. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Nation is the Greek word ethnos, which means a race, as of the same habit, i.e. a tribe, especially a foreign, non-Jewish one, Gentiles, usually by implication, pagan. Matthew 24, 6 and 7 could be translated like
I just picked you up.
Will hear of wars,
I'm not picking up every 2 minutes again.
See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For race will rise against race, and kingdom against kingdom. This is exactly what we are seeing in our world today.
If the tip-off from locals hadn't led them here, the stench would have. Red Crescent volunteers have been recovering bodies from streets, houses, and even wells.
We were told by residents of Al-Wali Street that the RSF was here and that they were killing citizens and throwing them into this well here. The well is 18 meters deep, and among the dead were women.
Some of the bodies have injuries to suggest they were thrown in alive. This area north of the capital was under the control of the RSF's paramilitary fighters for nearly 2 years before the Sudanese army retook it.
We heard gunfire all the time and saw fighters killing people. They would leave the bodies out for 3 days before throwing them in the well. I witnessed rapes, people being tortured. I've seen everything from my house. This is my home, and the RSF was sleeping over there, and they had a checkpoint in front of the well.
Both sides in this war have been accused of war crimes, which both deny. Some of the residents who fled at the conflict.
Also, Diane, the Pope's meeting the King in 2 weeks' time. The Pope is having an audience with the King, or the other way around, in 2 weeks.
Outbreak in April 2023 have begun to return to areas like this, north of the capital, to find a trail of destruction as Sudanese forces inch their way towards the presidential palace. The RSF, which earlier this year began establishing a parallel government, maintains control of parts of Khartoum and neighboring Omdurman, as well as Western Sudan. Nationwide, the conflict has killed tens of thousands of people, uprooted more than 12 million, and created the world's largest hunger and displacement crises.
Wow.
The severe weather, tornadoes and blizzard conditions in the Midwest, strong winds fueled dozens of wildfires across the South.
For the second time in under a week, tornado sirens wailing across America's heartland, leaving this morning, this damage. A tree toppled by 70-plus mile-per-hour winds blown into a home this morning. The snow falling as that storm continues off to the east.
Overnight, terrifying tornadic activity across the Midwest. 8 reported tornadoes in Illinois. Debris flying at cars on the interstate. Here in Indiana, wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour, taking down power lines, leading to this massive explosion. Sparks lighting up the night sky as firefighters arrived on scene. Multiple tornadoes hitting late in the afternoon.
I just saw the roof like standing up and going up in the air.
Crews clearing train tracks after winds ripped this roof off a warehouse.
It was really bad. It was scary.
Winds taking down trees. Sarah Lewis raced to her mother's home in Highland, finding the tree that had been in their front yard for decades toppled over.
The whole tree was uprooted that, I grew up with, and everything was on my childhood home, and it's very devastating.
In Nebraska, blizzard conditions, leaving roads covered in slick black ice.
There he goes, jackknife. Wow.
Cars and tractor trailers spinning out, ending up on the side of the road. Dry and windy conditions leading to wildfires. 38 fires broke out in Arkansas. In Texas, a wildfire burning through Sam Houston National Forest, prompting evacuations.
In the book of Job, chapter 37, 5 through 13, we learn that God controls the weather. God thunders marvelously with his voice. He does great things which we cannot comprehend. For he says to the earth, likewise to the gentle rain and the heavy rain of his strength. He seals the hand of every man, that all men may know his work. The beasts go into dens and remain in their lairs. From the chamber of the south comes the whirlwind, and cold from the scattering winds of the north. By the breath of God ice is given, and the broad waters are frozen. Also with moisture he saturates the thick clouds. He scatters his bright clouds, and they swirl about, being turned by his guidance, that they may do whatever he commands them on the face of the whole earth. He causes it to come, whether for correction, or for his land, or for mercy. Correction is the Hebrew word shabbat, which means, literally, a stick for punishing, writing, fighting, ruling, walking, etc. Job 37:13 can be translated like this. He causes it to come, whether for punishment, or for his land, or for mercy. God controls the weather for 3 reasons: for punishment, for his land, or for mercy. The weather we have been witnessing is clearly punishment.
Officials ordered the evacuation of homes near Malaga in southern Spain after heavy rains caused riverbanks to burst, unleashing flash floods. Firefighters were searching for a missing couple in Sevilla on Tuesday morning and found the body of a woman near the area where their vehicle disappeared. Andalusia's Interior Chief Antonio Sanz said that 19 rivers in the region were on high alert for flooding. A total of 40 highways across the region, as well as some rail lines, had to be closed due to rising waters, and school classes were suspended in 16 municipalities. Spain, which has suffered from a prolonged drought in recent years, has received steady rainfall, especially in its south, for the last 2 weeks. And the latest storm proved too much for reservoirs and riverbanks. Scientists and government officials link these swings between extreme dry and wet spells to climate change, which has also produced increasingly hot summers in Spain.
The world is baffled at the events taking place in the weather, and yet it was foretold 2,000 years ago in Bible prophecy that this would happen. Satan, the great deceiver, often tries to front-run God by giving people wrong ideas ahead of time about what is prophesied to happen. Satan has tricked mankind into believing that climate change is real, and in turn has blinded many people to the gospel of Jesus Christ, as we read in 2 Corinthians 4:3 and 4. But even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing, whose minds the God of this age is blinded, who do not believe, lest the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine on them. Jesus said a sign of his return would be more frequent and more intense weather, as we read in Matthew 24:7 and 8. And there will be famines.
Diane, these pastors, they're supposed to know God better than us. There's no way on earth, even if I was that way inclined, that I'd do that with kids, because it's a death sentence. You can't get away from that. And your mind's pretty bad that you get aroused over a kid anyway. If your mind's that, what God called a reprobate mind, you're gone.
Pestilences and earthquakes.
And they parade as priests and pastors
in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Pestilence is the Greek word loimus, which means a plague. Definition of a plague is any large-scale calamity, especially when thought to be sent by God. God has used plagues in the form of extreme weather in the past and will again in the future. The 7th plague on Egypt was hail. Don't forget about the famine in Joseph's time. One of the biggest is the flood in the book of Genesis. In the future, during the 7-year tribulation, God will once again use extreme weather in the form of pestilence as judgment. In Revelation 16:21, God uses hailstones weighing 100 pounds each, and great hail from heaven fell upon men, each hailstone about the weight of a talent. Men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, since that plague was exceedingly great. In Revelation 16:8 and 9, God uses scorching heat. Then the 4th angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and power was given to him to scorch men with fire. And men were scorched with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of God who has power over these plagues, and they did not repent and give him glory. Climate change is simply Satan's counter to Jesus' signs of his return and the end of the age. So when Jesus Christ warns us that just before his second coming, there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places, you had better believe that these occurrences are a sign from God and that he is about to intervene. Don't let Satan blind you to the gospel. The extreme weather the world has been witnessing is not climate change. It is God letting us know our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, is returning. The signs of Jesus' return are so strong now, and the evidence is so clear, that any person willing to accept the truth can see that the end of the world, as we know it, is near. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But God demonstrates his own love toward us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. That if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. These are the ABCs of salvation. A. Admit that you're a sinner. B. Believe in your heart that Jesus Christ died for your sins, was buried, and God raised him from the dead. C. Call upon the name of the Lord, and you will be saved. Jesus paid the price.
And that's all you got to do. It's pretty simple, isn't it, guys? Okay. Now let's do the time travel thing.
I think you're going to hear a lot about it in this project.
STARGATE. So put that name down in your books because I think you're going to hear a lot about it.
In this project, we talked about how Trump was connected to Tesla. He's connected to some books that were written in the late 1800s by Ingersoll Lockwood, how that he actually predicted the world trade thing going on in 9/11, how it's interesting that he was the 45th president, which 5 + 4 = 9. He's also the 47th president, which 4 + 7 = 11. Many people believe he was actually John Teeter on Coast to Coast. What I think is the most interesting part of all of this is the AI in ancient Sumerian terms. In ancient Sumerian, this is the A, and it means water, watercourse, canal, seminal fluid, offspring, father, tears, flood. And in the reference that I have here, it is in reference to the demons trapped and within the Apsu. This is the abyss. In the scriptures and in other books, they talk about this fluid and this, I guess, flow of energy that comes from the deep.
In Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2, it says, darkness was upon the face of the deep. And there are scholars that believe, and I would agree with this, that deep is actually an entity. The Bible talks about the deep calling unto deep, and this would be associated with the Tom and with Tiamat in the Babylonian rituals.
It says to go out, emerge, to send forth, to lead, to bring out, to rise, to sprout, or to become visible, to appear as a witness. The first mentions of a stargate of sorts is Babylon, which Babylon means, according to most etymologists, means the gate of the gods. Babylon could come from the word Babu, which is a Sumerian term, which means portal. Elon, which is another word, Elon or Ilon, is another word for God.
If any man have an ear, let him hear.
My goal is not to share my opinion as much as just give information. So I'm excited, David, and I'm ready whenever you are.
Let's ride.
$500 million is being pumped into it by our government. We're going to be covering the subject all the way from the Army Stargate operation that happened in the 70s, programming and shows surrounding Stargate. And to me, the most interesting aspects of all of this stuff is going to be the historical data surrounding it, because to me, it proves exactly why they're doing it, exactly what it is. And it shows us some prophetic significance that we need to understand going into the final and great deception. So we're going to be talking about the Sumerian language meaning of the AI, and we're going to be talking about the biblical and the prophetic meaning of it, and also how it connects to Nimrod, Babylon, and Osiris. You're starting with the most recent events that have taken place. We have Project Stargate that involves several CEOs of major companies involved in a company named Oracle. Here are some of the tensions that people are getting. Just the regular people that aren't awakened yet probably haven't seen all of the other stuff that's going into this, but this is the stuff that the regular people are worried about.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most exciting things we're working on, using the tools that Sam and Masa are providing, is a cancer vaccine. It's very interesting. Early diet. It turns out, I'll be quick. All of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do it using you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future. The police will be on their best behavior. because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. All right, I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras.
So there you go. This is some of the things that people are concerned about, rightfully so. There's a lot that I could say about that. I think a lot of you guys can put 2 and 2 together at the kind of stuff that we're getting ready to face here. And I thought it was really interesting here because they said that they've got the name from the 1994 film Stargate. And I had to go watch the film because I had watched it before, but it had been a very long time. I actually even went and watched part of the SG-1 series, and I thought it was interesting that they mentioned this Stargate, and also here at the top, you see that they differentiated the project that was done in the 70s.
Wow, Diane, that's stunning about Canada. And will that give Trump the opportunity to come in and make it the 51st state? Things are just changing so quickly. This is stunning.
With Project Stargate, you'll remember a broadcast that we did called Trump, Time Travel, and Tesla. And in this project, we talked about how Trump was connected to Tesla. He's connected to some books that were written in the late 1800s, early 1900s by Ingersoll Lockwood, how that he actually predicted the world trade thing going on in 9/11, how it's interesting that he was the 45th president, which 5 plus 4 equals 9. He's also the 47th president, which 4 plus 7 equals 11. So we have this 9/11 number going on with all that. There's a lot of stuff packed in with him, and time travel keeps popping up over and over again. In fact, many people believe he was actually John Teeter. And for those of you who are, I guess, older than 30 years old, may remember John Teeter on Coast to Coast. Just amazing stuff, and he predicted many things that were happening. I would like to delve into looking at the project Operation Stargate that took place and started taking place in the 70s and ended near the 90s. And so it was established in 77 at Fort Meade. There were basically a group.
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you. Wow, about that, Diane. Where is it? Was that you, Shawnee? Wow, Shawnee, what you posted. Wow.
Coming together.
That means Trump is definitely one of the 10 kings. If he's going over to kowtow with Charles, he must be one of the 10 kings. Oh my, wow, guys.
And astral projecting, or remote viewing is what they would call it. And they would have targets where they would go to these locations and they would get all the information, all the data that was available at that spot. They would look for missing people. They would do all sorts of things. And this was went by several different names. I've got them listed here on the slide. Gondola Wish, Stargate. Gondola Wish was the...
That's got to make Trump one of the 10 kings. They're all getting put in place. Putin's in place. Wow, that's getting crazy.
The first one, and I actually listened to a guy, McMonigal, speaking on Sean Ryan's show today about Gondola Wish, because he was involved at the very beginning of all this, and it just kept going until it was eventually given and rechristened Stargate Project. I really dug into the Stargate Project and read books on it. I have this book that I'm going to be quoting a little bit from called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. I listened to hours and hours of testimony from this, looked at different cases to where they had actually been correct on that. And I believe personally that they were onto something there. And I don't know what, I can't explain it. I believe in out-of-body experiences. I believe that people do these things. I believe that people astral project. I know that it's a major practice in the occult, and now we know that it's also a major practice in the military as well. I'm going to read out of page 70 from this book here called The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and it's a skeptic's journey into the CIA's Project Stargate. Call it the place that they go, the Matrix, and I want to read this to you guys. It says, I sat in a quiet twilight of the Matrix in the center of a small circle of soft blue light. sanctuary is the launch point and return venue for extended remote viewers. It is one of several techniques classified as delivery mechanisms. These mechanisms are designed to launch the viewer into the matrix and drop them into the target area. And so basically they start out with this blue light, and then it starts to turn into a violet color. I did some research on blue and violet light and the effects on the brain. In fact, the interesting thing about it is blue and violet light are the only ones that trigger the brain differently together. So I don't know if there's a connection with this blue and violet light, but we do know that blue light tech is a huge part of all computers, all devices. So anyways, here we're going to page 71. And it says, there was a feeling of being crushed as when I was viewing the Titanic. There was no oxygen. It was uncomfortable. I looked at the sky to take my feeling off being smothered. And he continues to talk about the red. There's a bunch of red and this blackness and this tornado looking thing, this whirlwind looking thing that was next to him. And he was viewing Mars. And there's a lot about viewing Mars. If you look up Project Stargate and Mars, you'll see that a big portion of their time and efforts were on targeting Mars for some reason or another. And I think that when you start to see what some of our leaders are connected with Mars, you'll start to understand that. And that actually, as we continue on with the predictive programming and the historical value, Mars plays a massive role in this. So keep Mars on your list. Just like Trump said, remember, and keep Stargate on your book, write it down in your book and remember it, because we're going to talk a lot about it. Well, Mars is one of those things as well. And here is a article. Trump signs bill directing NASA to send humans to Mars. This is huge for Trump. For those of you who watched Elon Musk's Matrix Endgame that we did a few weeks ago, actually a couple months ago, you will see that Mars is a dedication of Elon. He was written about by Werner von Braun in his book as being the leader of Mars. It's funny, the other day I saw Elon Musk posted an X about that, about how saying that he didn't even know about it, like it was a new information to him. Going on to the Stargate series, this has a lot to do with.
I saw something this morning about, how they reckon Tesla cars? Well, Trump's going to go after the rioters like they did with the January 6 rioters, the so-called storm of the White House. They're going to do the same thing to them. That's what Trump said.
Mars, actually. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the lore with the SG-1 Stargate series. There was this entity called Phobos, and he was a Gould. And these Goulds were actually kind of like parasites, but they looked almost like worms that would go inside the person, and then they would control that person as a parasite. And these were what the Goulds is another word for the gods. So what they did was they found this Stargate in ancient Egypt. And in the Stargate, it had several symbols on it, and they matched these symbols up, and they were able to travel to this Stargate, to this other place, this planet P3X, I believe. P3X, it was like P3X 888, and it was 88 or 888, P3X 888. And for those of you that understand the meaning of 8, this is pretty interesting. But they would go through this thing, and they found this race of what they believed to be like serpent type people. And these people were covered with machines. So they were kind of integrated machine bodies and human bodies. And then they also had this Gould that lived for thousands of years inside of it. And these people had created this race of humans that were you couldn't tell the difference between the human beings on Earth and the human beings that they had made there. And they would infest themselves into the humans, and then they would go and mine, kind of like the Anunnaki story. They would mine on Earth and get things that they needed, send it back in the Stargate, and then they would mine stuff on the other planets, send back and forth in this Stargate. Well, the Stargate hadn't been opened in a very long time, and they would carve out these large empires, and so the person, this Phobos, his father was the god of Mars, so he took his place as Mars, as the god of war in this, and he would rule his countries like Rome did, because there was a large Roman influence. They believed that they were the ones who seeded Rome and made Rome happen with their laws so that Rome could take over the entire world. Rome, as you know, most of you who have watched this program, you'll see that Rome in these elites is a huge thing in their mind's eye. And in the movie itself, So I watched the movie, an entire movie there, and in this movie you have the they're going to this other planet, and this other planet is called Abydos, which I thought was super interesting. And the goal of this guy Jackson, who's going through this, who kind of gets activated to go through this Stargate, is to blow up the portal on the other side over there and possibly take out whatever he can take out over there, because over there's this god Ra. And when you see this god Ra, he's kind of an androgynous god. He looks like a female, speaks like a man. He has this mask, they have these metal bodies that they kind of can take off or hit a button and it peels off of them. They have these special powers that they can deal with. So we're going to move on to what I think is the most interesting part of all of this, is the AI in ancient Sumerian terms. And this is not something that I ever looked at before, and I don't know what drove me to do it, but I just thought this AI has to have something significant. There's something significant with AI, and obviously it's right now we know there's something significant, but what about, can we learn about it in ancient terms? So I looked at the A. The A is in ancient Sumerian, this is the A, and it means water, watercourse, canal, seminal fluid, offspring, father, tears, flood. And in the reference that I have here, when you read this reference, it is in reference to the demon.
Shawnee, I've played that a couple of times, Aitlan Child's exposure. I've actually streamed that a couple of times.
Trapped in within the Apsu. And then you have the Abzu, which for those of you that don't understand, the Abzu is the equivalent of the abyss. This is the abyss where evil resides, where demons reside, where basically the giant serpent resides. This is the place. David, do you have any more you could add with us about what the abyss is? Of course, we know what comes out of the abyss, but what else can we add to the meaning of abyss?
Well, the abyss is used as a prison house for spirits. In Luke, the 8th chapter, we see Jesus sending the devils into the abyss. And we see in Revelation chapter 9, Abaddon, the king of the bottomless pit, or the abyss. It is a portion of the underworld, and this is something that the Sumerian and Babylonian cultures, they were very, very aware of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then the one thing too that struck my interest, it talks about it being a water course and a canal, and the go ahead.
Well, and this connects with the biblical word, the deep.
Yeah. Boy, you read my mind, because that's no,
I'm getting ahead of you. Yeah.
No, you got it. You're right. And and it says here that within dead things are formed from under the waters and the inhabitants thereof. This is in Job, and there's this idea of this fluid that continually produces in the scriptures and in other books. They talk about this fluid and this I guess flow of energy that comes from the deep. David, discuss the deep just a little bit, since you mentioned it.
Well, in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2, it says darkness. Well, literally there was a vapor canopy, which I believe were like the rings of Saturn, that collapsed from above, and the subterranean deep was opened up. And literally in Noah's flood, the waters were 20 feet over the highest mountain. That's a bunch of water. And this deep, we've read from Babylonian exorcism texts that talk about the androgynous beings that live in the deep. And the Babylonians trace the very beginning of things to androgynous creatures in the deep, which we see in scripture as a holdover from that judgment in Genesis 1 and 2, when the whole earth was without form and void. So it's a terribly important concept, and it's kind of a basic spiritual understanding to be able to move forward to really get what's going on.
So we've in the Sumerian language equals waters, having to do with maybe the abyss and the spiritual bodies that are in there. Now we're going to move on to I. It says to go out.
Shawnee, I was trying to think what it was, Orca. I couldn't get it. That's not my joke. I hijacked it.
Emerge, to send forth, to lead, to bring out, to rise, to sprout, or to become visible, to appear as a witness. So we have these waters of the deep, of the abyss, possible meaning, rising, coming forth, emerging, and sending forth. When you go back to Sumerian terms, you have to go back to Babylon as well. We have to go back because one of the first mentions of a stargate of sorts is Babylon, which Babylon means, according to most etymologists, means the gate of the gods. And for those of you that have never heard this spoken about before, if you look in the book of Jasher, you'll see a little bit more about it that I'll jump to here in a second. But I also want to go over some of the alternate meanings for this possible word here, and because they have a mixture of there's a mixture of words. The Babylon could come from the word babu, which is a Sumerian term which means portal or like a portal, basically like a gate. And then the babu is the word for gate, and then Elon, which is another word, Elon or Ilon is another word for God. So we have Bab, Elon, and then now this is another possible meaning, which all of them are very similar in their meaning, but you have the mix something. So a lot of people believe it's that because you have the Babylon, the mixing of languages.
Okay, that's interesting. Elon, as in Elon Musk. That's very interesting.
And then you have the flowing along a course, bottom of a course, saturate, reject, absorption. And then you have Abel, which is liquid, semi-liquid elements along with a collective course. So we have a lot of similar meanings when we're talking about the AI in Sumerian and also the Babylon. And I'm going to read the verse, you guys, about Babylon because I think that there's some things hidden in here that are going to make a lot of sense. It says, "And the whole earth was of one language." And I highlighted these one languages because language has almost everything to do with why he separated the languages. I mean, obviously, the reason he separated languages because one language was a problem. There's a reason for that. And it says, "And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said, Go to, let us build a city and a tower, whose top may reach into the heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have one language. And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined anew." So this one language kept them the ability for them to be able to do anything that they imagined to do. And in Genesis 11:9, it says, "Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did confound the language of the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth." So Babu may not mean gate. It may actually have something to do with the mixing and the confounding here, because it does say that the reason that they called it that was to do with the confounding of the language. And so we'll go and look at the Jasher account of what happened at the Tower of Babel. Now, we've said this many, many times before. We do not believe Jasher is considered part of the canon of Scripture. It is mentioned in the Scripture as being written. There's no way for us to know 100% sure if this is the Jasher that is mentioned in Scripture, but as a historical account of different things, it does a great job. Not everything has to be canon or Scripture to do a good job of being historical data for us to read. So we're going to look in the book of Jasher because I think that this makes a lot of sense as to why it was a problem. And it says in verse 26, "And all these people and all the families divided themselves in three parts. The first said, We will ascend into heaven and fight against him. The second said, We will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. And the third part said, We will ascend to heaven and smite him with bows and spears. And God knew all their works and their evil thoughts, and he saw in the tower that they were building." So he believed, and he saw their thoughts, and he believed that they were coming up to actually try to kill him and try to take the throne room and put their own gods in those places. And if we look at Nimrod himself, the character behind all of this, the ruling person at the time, it says that in Genesis 10, verse 8, it says he began to be a mighty one on the earth. And that word for mighty one right there is Gibberim. And the first time we actually see this word mentioned in the Scriptures, we see it mentioned in Genesis 6, where it says they became mighty men on the earth, mighty men of renown. These are the Gibberim of renown. So Nimrod is the second mention of this mighty man. Also, the word began. I looked at the Hebrew of the word began here, and this word has the connotations of defilement. It says defile, profane, pollute, desecrate, and it says to dissolve, profane, to break. Conveys the idea of profaning and defiling something sacred. So this here, let me show you guys this. This is the 2490 word chala, and it's 2490 in the Strongs, and you can look this up in any Hebrew lexicon when it's used as a verb, which is basically how it's used. Then it connotates profaning and defiling. Now Nimrod, according to the Freemasons, is one of the first, if not the first, Grand Master of the Lodge because of his building practices. According to Mackey's Revised English of Freemasonry, if you look at the word in Nimrod on there, that's what you're going to find. That's what they're going to say. And it's interesting because the reason that they do this, I think that a lot of people, when they look at Nimrod, they think, well, he was a master builder, but he was also able to do something that is the heart of these mystery religions, that's to ascend and become something greater and stronger than just a normal human, to be able to become something more. And there's a few people that have suggested that Gilgamesh is a good possible character for Nimrod. I'm not so sure. David just did a research on Gilgamesh and talked a lot about Epic of Gilgamesh, but you have this idea that he's 2/3 God, 1/3 man. So this 2/3 God, this 0.666 plays a lot in there, and this 0.33 for his 1/3 of his man plays a lot into that. There's another character called Ninurta, which I think, David, you've talked about Ninurta before. We've talked about him. I think I talked about him in the last broadcast that I did. But Ninurta has thunderbolts, and he pursued this Anzu bird to get these tablets of destiny, which I'm going to talk a little bit about here in a second. Many scholars would agree that Ninurta was probably the inspiration. Well, I believe the opposite. Nimrod was probably the inspiration for Ninurta. But if you look at some of the ruins of the cities, it just makes a lot of sense, because Namrud was the name of one of the cities where they found most of these things to Ninurta. For those of you that have not read the Anzu and the Tablets of Destiny, I just want to give you guys a kind of a rundown of what this is. This Anzu bird was often depicted as this giant bird with the face of a lion, and sometimes with the face of an eagle. And Enlil gives the Anzu this position of the guardian of his sanctuary. So the Anzu is the guardian of the sanctuary, and he betrays Enlil, and he steals these tablets of destiny. That these tablets of destiny are what grant Enlil authority, and now the Anzu bird has these. And so Ninurta comes to the rescue after several gods try and fail. Ninurta comes and confronts the Anzu bird. And here's an example of what the tablets of destiny do. I think that this is really key to understanding why I'm even bringing up the tablets of destiny. But as Ninurta goes to shoot arrows at the Anzu bird, the Anzu bird uses the tablets of destiny, and it reverts the arrows back to their normal form. These tablets have the power to reset.
Do you know what I should do, guys? You heard of the Emerald tablets? I knew about them, but I haven't looked into them, being Christian. But he looks at this sort of stuff, so I might check that out. Looks interesting.
Things the way that they were. So they have the power of reset to turn things back to their original state and change time, and basically create this wheel of time that's a never-ending wheel of time where they can just completely reset things and do things all over again. They offered him a high place on the Council of Gods for getting these tablets of destiny back. And David, we've done a broadcast on the Book of Enoch, and we're going through the Book of Enoch, line by line, chapter by chapter, and we've gone past the chapter 69. But there's something in 69 that I want to bring out here that I believe could be talking about these tablets of destiny. And I've never noticed this before. The other day, I was researching this, and this just came to my mind. So this is theoretical, but yet to me it makes a lot of sense and starts to make me understand this a little bit better. So in Enoch chapter 69 and verse 13, it says, "And this is the task of Casbiel, the chief of the oath, which he showed to the holy ones when he dwelt high above in glory, and its name is Bakah." So this angel Casbiel, who's the chief of the oath, showed this oath to the holy ones in glory. It goes on to talk about the reciting of this oath that takes place. And as we read here, I used to think that this was a Satan because the way I read it, the way it reads, it seemed to read that. But when I read it and I actually broke it down and started going word for word, I realized that at the end of verse 13, verse 14 could be a whole nother paragraph. It starts a whole nother statement that has nothing to do with the Satans on there. And I'm going to read it and you guys can see if you agree with me or not. So in verse 13, it says the verse we just read, and then it goes on to 14, or I'm sorry, in verse 12. Let me start over here again, guys. Sorry, I've got the chart here. I probably could use that. So in verse 4, it says the first is Jachan. This is talking about the Satans. The second was Asbiel. The third was Gadriel. The fourth was Numu. And the fifth was Kazdijah. And then the 13 doesn't say he's the sixth. It doesn't say anything about him being one of them. It says, and this is his task. In fact, he goes on to give the oath to Michael so that Michael can recite it, so the whole earth rejoices after he recites this oath. And if you continue reading the chapter, that's exactly what happens, showing that he is not, in fact, one of the Satans. He's reciting the oath to kind of reset, get things back to the way they started. And if you read that whole chapter, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But I did some research on his name, and his name, Kasa, the name Kasa that is ingrained into his name means to conceal, and it means the covered hand, the hidden power. And so this is interesting because this angel was in charge of this oath. And so it reminded me of something here, because when we see this idea of this angel being in charge of an oath, it reminds me, and being a covering, basically the one that is supposed to take care of this oath. It says here that he is the covering hand of this oath. You have in Ezekiel 28:14, you have the anointed cherub that covereth. And it says, and I've set thee so, thou was upon the holy mountain of God, thou was walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. So this entity in Ezekiel 28 has been in the holy mountain, walked up and down the stones of fire. We see cherubs mentioned.
Diane, they might be doing a Clinton list. The Democrats, they might be doing a Clinton list now. Get rid of the guys who know too much. That's what it seems like.
Many other times in the scripture, in fact, in the mercy seat, there are two cherubs that cover the mercy seat. We have the cherubs that guard the Garden of Eden with the flaming sword. You have the four creatures who are in the throne room of God. All of them have very interesting characteristics. Here in the cherub, you have the face of a man, the face of a bull, the face of a lion, and the face of an eagle. Many times when we think of cherubs, people look at these little creatures for Valentine's Day that are cherubs. That is not a cherub. A cherub is a monstrous, huge-looking creature that has different characteristics. One thing you'll see is in the Mesopotamian beliefs, you have the idea of this Anzu bird, this creature that resides at the top of this tree. And you have the cosmic tree. There's many stories of people going to the top of this cosmic tree, receiving wishes or some sort, like Lugobanda receiving something from this Anzu bird. And now we have the Anzu bird actually that steals the tablets of destiny, and they can't get it back from them. And it also connects really interesting here to the Mazzaroth. And the Mazzaroth, the interesting thing about the Mazzaroth, the interesting thing about these cherubs is the heads that they have. And this has been connected this is from the book, The Alpha and the Omega, chapter 1 by Jim Cornwell. And the interesting thing about these is that the heads actually match in 4 fixed signs on the Mazzaroth, and they're all exactly 3 signs apart from each other. So, and they're equidistant from each other, and they form a cross on the zodiac wheel that represents the sun path in the night sky. So like a portal path of the sun in the night sky. If we look at Enoch, you remember that there's certain times when the sun passes through these portals. Now, if you look at the different ones, you have all of the different animals. Now, Scorpio is the only astrological sign that actually has 4 animals attached to it. You have the serpent, you have the scorpion, you have the eagle, and you have the phoenix. All this particular being was in charge of these tablets of destiny. Also, this particular being in the scripture has something that he's done that has altered the order of things. And in fact, you realize that at one time Adam was in control of the world, but then we go on and we see that now the God of this world is something different. There's a different God of this world because he has usurped everything else. And the idea that the Anzu bird could be, in fact, a type of fallen entity, it shouldn't be too far-fetched. And I want to play a video by Rob Skiba. And Rob, for those of you that don't know Rob was a friend of ours. He passed away in, I believe, 2020 or 2021. I believe it was 2021.
Talk about the return of the watchers that were judged, bound, and buried for 70 generations. Is it just a coincidence that what happened in the 20th century? The return of the Nephilim, is it just a coincidence that we're seeing the hybridization taking place? Well, what about the return of the beast? We're expecting the return of Christ. I believe that there's going to be a return of Antichrist as well. If you remember the names that I had up there, Osiris being one of the references to Nimrod, one of the names he became known by. Well, the tomb of Osiris was found in 1999. Dr. Zahi Hawass said, I have found a shaft going 29 meters vertically down into the ground, exactly halfway between the Chevron pyramid and the Sphinx. At the bottom, which is filled with water, we have found a burial chamber with 4 pillars. In the middle is a large granite sarcophagus, which I expect to be the grave of Osiris, the god. I've been digging in Egypt's sand for more than 30 years, and up to date, this is the most exciting discovery I have made. This is what they found when they looked at it. This is an artist's rendering of it. The red star is the location between the pyramid and the Sphinx. And then you came down into a large chamber, went down again, came down to an area that had 7 sarcophagus things, and another tunnel that went down even further, actually 6, with a 7th one going down. And then you have the artist depiction on the right there of what they found. Now, the sarcophagus was open. They did find a body inside of it. Everybody that looked at it and studied it did not believe that it was Osiris, but they were thinking that this may be what we might consider to be a resurrection chamber. And so what it appears is that somebody, maybe with the hopes of being resurrected, was loaded into this thing and it didn't work. But it's a very interesting find. You can look that up, study that for yourself. And in 2003, April 2003, coincidentally 1 month before we set up the military occupation phase in Iraq, and the first thing our troops did was raid the Museum of Iraq, and 170,000 items were reported stolen. Of those, most of them were returned. The ones that were not returned were about 3,000 items that all dealt with resurrection and the afterlife. Probably just a coincidence. That's right after they found the tomb of Gilgamesh. And if the stories are to be believed, the body was found, believed to be Gilgamesh, and incredibly well preserved, and the primary objective was to extract DNA. So then we get to a warning from Yeshua in Matthew 24. He says, if any man say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not, for there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. He says, behold, I have told you before. That's King James. Other translations make it sound like, hey, listen up, I'm about to tell you something. Remember what I told you before? Think about it. If they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert. The body of Gilgamesh was pulled out of the desert in 2003. Go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers. The secret chamber of Osiris was found in 1999. Believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. That's what we should be looking for. Those are the real signs. Any other signs pointing to a Christ, forget about it. This is what you need to pay attention to. And then he says, for wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. And I think Steve said, rightly so. There are many different ways people have looked at these passages. Lots of different interpretations. Here's one of mine. When you look into what the occult believes, and again, the Freemasons and the Illuminati and all the secret societies and stuff, the rituals are all revolved around the dying and resurrecting character. In many cases, they're directly associated with Osiris. And Manly P. Hall is one of the most prolific writers of Freemasonry, said, whenever you see an eagle with a point on the back of its head, it's not really an eagle. It's a stylized, conventionalized phoenix. The phoenix is the Benu. It's the dying and resurrecting soul bird of Osiris in the mythology. So I'm at the train station in Washington, D.C., and if you go there and you look up, you'll see the whole top of the train station is lined with pagan gods. There's one that I didn't put in here, but on the left side, the quote sounds like, it sounds like a biblical thing. It says, "Behold, I put all things under his feet." But it's a Zeus. That's not what my scriptures say, but you look at the stuff, and that's on the left. When you go to the right, you see this right here. You see two pointy-headed eagles facing in opposite directions, and it says, between them, "Let all the ends thou aimst at be, thy countries, thy gods, and truths be noble. And the nobleness that lies in other men, sleeping but never dead, will rise in majesty to meet thine own." What is that all about? Well, I got two phoenix eagles right there. I was thinking about my time in the military. When I was in the Army, I was covered from head to toe with eagles. Eagles on our buttons, eagles on our patches, eagles on our shoes. Like eagles are everywhere, the American eagle. But, Manly P. Hall says there's another meaning behind that. And so while we were looking at all this stuff, there was something that I wanted to see, and I didn't know where it was. We're driving down the road, and I looked between two buildings, and I saw two eagles perched atop pillars, one on each pillar, through this aisleway. I said, I don't know what that is, but let's go check it out. So I go down there, and this is what we find. A statue. This is in the National Harbor in Washington, D.C. A statue of a bearded god coming up out of the National Harbor. And the name of the statue is called The Awakening, which is right underneath the statue of two eagles looking down on it. I don't know, but this stuff is out there. And you got people, again, like Manly P. Hall saying, "The dying God shall rise again. The secret room in the house of the hidden places shall be rediscovered. The pyramid, again, shall stand as the ideal emblem of solidarity, inspiration, aspiration, resurrection, and regeneration." This is in The Secret Teaching of All Ages, Manly P. Hall, page 44.
I've got a picture of it here, but I don't know if you guys remember the WikiLeaks when they leaked all of the Hillary Clinton emails and different stuff. There was an email from Hillary about, it says, requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body and the location of the buried Nephilim. And I remember when that happened, that was unreal. In the background here, I'm going to be playing a video, and it's just, there's no audio to it, but there's a video of this resurrection chamber, and what is being said is Gilgamesh, and this is a VHS tape. Doesn't look faked unless the body itself is fake, which is obviously possible. But when you look at this body and you see like kind of what it looks like, and you see all the stuff around it, if you see anything that stands out to you, David, please feel free to say something. But the idea that I thought about this, Gilgamesh or Nimrod was able to transcend. He was able to do something that nobody else had done previously, to the point to where God actually went down, confused their languages, and split them apart all over the world. And I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe that he was able to create some kind of way to reach into the abyss or reach into something, and to be able to try to steal something, to create himself to be more than just a god. There's a way that he did it. We don't know how he did it. And of course, all of this stuff is speculation on the idea of the tablets of destiny, and maybe he got a hold of those, which is how he received himself some kind of seat on the council, which the Bible does talk about a man who believes he's going to God, who believes he's going to ascend to the seat of the gods, and he has the heart of a man, but he believes in his mind he's a god. And so it's very possible that he did stumble upon some tablets, some oath tablets that he was able to get his hands on and receive the deal because of it. But I believe he's in the abyss right now.
The idea of the resurrection or resuscitation, the Egyptians held this. This is one of the basic concepts behind mummification, that they believed that these could be brought back to life in some point in time. And the ancient beliefs are being pursued through science. The Ted Williams, for the baseball fan, he's still in deep freeze. They're looking to bring old Ted back. And the whole concept of transhumanism and uploading consciousness into machines. I mean, this is still, it's an ancient belief, but this is still something that is being hotly pursued by science, falsely so-called.
When we're looking at all of this stuff combined, when we look at the idea of them trying to get to Mars, the STARGATE predictive programming about this god of Mars who is in control of the other side of this portal, when you look at the idea of the ascension of Nimrod. Nimrod's trying his best to ascend to become something more than man. When you look at the idea of Babylon being possibly a stargate to where they were trying to reach the heavens so that they could overthrow God or reach the abyss, constant programming surrounding all of the psychic phenomenon, the paranormal, supernatural, all of the things that are going on in this world. To me, it only makes sense that what they may not intend to do, but what this project Stargate intends to do is to enter into a portal of some sort. I don't think it's any coincidence that Oracle is the company who is actually going to house this. I don't know if you remember this, David, but I'm sure some of you guys will remember that a couple years ago, doing a show about 666, Oracle was the company that I mentioned that said this is the only company that actually has the server space to be able to do some of this stuff. This was 2 years ago. And then we did another video about Oracle where they were the first company to make biometric data the company-wide standard biometric, so biometric scanning of all their companies. So they've been in the news for a long time. Larry Ellison has been a major player in the software computer companies for a long time, major CEO, some would say the top in the world, a multi-billionaire. You have all of, I guess, the OpenAI joining together. You have so many different people joining together to create this. And we know, ultimately, we understand what needs to happen in order for all this to take place. But what I believe that is possible, especially when you see the idea of AI possibly having ties to the Sumerian language and the abyss, this verse right here just really hits a little bit differently when you read it. And it says, Revelation 17:8, it says, the beast thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, which Abydos, Abaddon, abyss, all have roots in that word, which Abaddon is the name in the Hebrew, Apollyon the name of the Greek of the beast that comes out of here. It says he was and is not, and then it says here that is one of the 7 kings. He says 5 are fallen, 1 is, the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is the 7th, and goeth into perdition. So it's very possible that Nimrod is in fact this beast who comes back again, this king. There's not a whole lot of different people that it could be. There's not too many that had a deadly head wound. I think Nimrod was one that, according to the book of Jasher, he had his head lopped off by Esau. Esau stole his garments, and then Jacob was able to receive the garments with soup from Esau. But there's this story doing to that, so there's a possibility there. But if that's a possibility, and if they are trying to open this portal to get Nimrod back out of this portal, imagine those who would wonder after this beast whose deadly wound was healed. And in Matthew 24:24, it says, there shall arise false Christs, false prophets, and shall show many signs and wonders. And insomuch, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. I believe that this deception is going to be very hard for people to resist. Even those people that may think maybe I shouldn't do this, maybe this is wrong. I think it's going to be hard to resist. I think that if this portal doesn't open the abyss, it's a portal into the human body. In Daniel, it talks about the final kingdom, and the final kingdom having 10 toes mixed with miry clay, iron mixed with miry clay. And it says that their seed will try to mix with the seed of men, but it won't cleave. And we see through all of this predictive programming, there's a seed that wants to mix with man. They want to use man's body. They want to blend in with mankind. They want to be a part of this, and they want to destroy mankind ultimately, because that's ultimately what's going to happen. I believe that this project is one of many that will take place. There's deep seek going on in China, a lot of really high-tech stuff going on. I believe we're going to see some supernatural things that we've never seen, we've been told to believe don't exist. And when people see these things, they're going to have their mind absolutely blown by it.
Soy latte for Greg Callister, born on the 9th of February 1987. Mother's maiden name Smith. First pet was Patrick Swayze.
There's no need to overshare personal details. Connect ID.
By having a 120-kilometre fast train from the CBD, we can arrive at the CBD in 20 minutes and deliver houses to the market for 50%
Bones. We have them apparently coming out of the water. The way these people react is absolutely hilarious. We're also going to get into this story of a new technology that was recently used to analyze the Great Pyramid. You're not going to believe what's underneath it. It goes down for almost 2 kilometers. And there's these massive columns that they were able to get high resolution pictures of. We'll get into that as well. I wanted to go through some of these clips of these. Apparently, we're seeing a lot of, I guess you would say, evidence of these UFOs. They got all these different names now, coming out of the water. This one here is in Daytona Beach. Check this out.
What the fuck? What is it doing?
Look, I'm recording it.
I can't do it.
They flying around. There's 2 lines now.
Oh, it's flying around. It's flying around.
They see there's 2 lines now.
It's so many of them.
Oh my goodness, their reaction's so hilarious. They're basically freaking out because they saw this thing come out of the water at Daytona Beach. They saw it come out of the ocean. And also these things tend to morph. It's really bizarre. And so we're going to get into a number of topics, not just these, USOs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them. But we're also going to talk about a number of other stories of things that have come out recently. We got this magic money computer thing that Elon mentioned. We'll get into that as well. We're going to get into actually a ton of stuff, including some rather curious videos. And actually, I'm going to show you this right here. I was talking about underneath the Great Pyramid, this new evidence that just came out. This is essentially a drawing of the pyramid, and these are the massive columns underneath it. I'm going to get into that and much more, as I mentioned. But I wanted to show you a couple clips. This one also just came out as well. Check this out. You can see here, he's trying to follow something, and he finds it right there. And we see these really bizarre things flying around in skies across America. And what's really weird about them is they seem to morph. They change shape. They pretend to be planes. They pretend to be drones. They seemingly change at whim.
That's what the Transformers movie's based on, their ability to morph into other characters.
It is becoming very bizarre. Of course, this isn't like the story you've seen commonly, but I wanted to cover this because there's been a lot more videos of recent. But like I said, we're going to get into a ton of stuff. Let's play this clip real quick, and then we'll get into some of these other stories as well. But check this out.
But it's not just in Ohio, it's all over the world. There's also the supposed story of a satellite that's running around in space. No one knows who owns it. It doesn't look like a regular satellite.
Astronomers just discovered a satellite orbiting Earth that no one's known about.
This is really bizarre because this is what I was talking about. You have all these ships that appear to be drones or jet. I've seen them look like jet planes and then turn into, orbs. Now we have apparently satellites as well doing this. And a lot of these seemingly come out of the ocean. We're seeing them in Florida. We've had all these strange things ever since December. Of course, it hasn't been sort of a top story as it was during that time in December, January, and even a little bit in February. But now we're starting to see more of these come out. And I showed you this picture before. I thought this is really interesting as well. It has to do with the moon and seeing a star through it. Check this out.
This photograph was taken last week. It is Venus through the moon.
That's pretty deep.
So I covered this actually in a previous video already, and I mentioned what I think is actually going on here. And it's a theory I came up with some time ago. It has to do with the fact that I believe we're not actually looking directly at the moon, but we're looking at a projection of it onto, of course, a surface. I've presented this theory before. I don't want to present it here because it's quite lengthy, but it has to do with light being polarized through our atmosphere, but we don't know what's polarizing it. And usually it's some sort of crystalline surface or like a liquid like water or glass. They usually can polarize light. For some reason, we have a polarizer above us between us and the sun, and we don't know what it is. And I've also pointed out in the past how you can't actually see the moon approach the sun during an eclipse. That's another thing you don't see. So it's really interesting when you see things like this. If the positioning is different than what is projected, then you would see something like Venus inside the moon like this. And I've covered it in other videos. I'll probably get into it in more depth on another video, but at any rate. So you got those stories there. We're going to get into a number of other things. We got so many other topics to get into. We have here magic money computers, apparently. I call it a magic money computer, any computer which can just make money out of thin air. So apparently they were doing this, and we're not just talking about the way that like they can just print money, but this is something where there's like no documentation. They're just making it out of thin air. No one even knows they did it. That kind of thing.
Magic money computers. Well, so tell us about it, because I never heard of that until you brought that up.
Okay, so you may think that the government computers like all talk to each other, they synchronize, they add up what funds are going somewhere, and it's it's coherent. That there's and that the numbers, for example, that you're presented as a senator, are actually the real numbers.
One would think.
One would think. They're not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're just like making money. They're printing money without even telling anybody they're doing it. It's just like it's like a money tree in your backyard. It's like, oh, just get more money. And they were using it for all these programs with this waste and fraud. We saw that they were trying to, they were cutting from the USAID. They cut it down 83% from what I remember. But now we have judges trying to block that, of course. A judge just ordered DOJ to all but fully reinstate USAID after they fully dismantled it. That's right, a judge is now. So this is hilarious. We see all these judges coming out doing this. And also in related news, we have a judge ordering the price of eggs to go back up because clearly we can't allow anybody to think inflation's going down. That's a joke, of course. But it is kind of weird. We've seen so many weird stories with judges trying to stop the deportation, of course, of gang members. Like every time he tries to do something, they try to stop him with some sort of judge, right? We're seeing all that of recent. And, of course,
I got real life insurance to protect us financially. You can choose up to $2 million cover. Click to request a quote now.
He lied about his age to enlist and was wounded at Lone Pine while saving a mate. He was my great Uncle Jack.
There could be more to your story. Piece it together with Ancestry.
Udemy helped me accomplish my career goal of becoming a data scientist.
The fact is, like, we have such difficult or expensive homes now. Things have gotten so expensive, as you can see in this graph. The median household income is now nowhere near qualified income to own a home at this point. I mean, this is back in 2021. This isn't like 1970. This is 2021. So 2021, you were actually able to afford a home, like the average person. Ever since 2021, you're not able to anymore. You see how that works? And it's starting to look like Canada, where it's like $5 million for like, a 3,000 square foot house or something. And like a doctor and a pharmacist and like, 4 other families have to like live in this one home. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is in Canada as well, particularly in the big cities like Toronto, where I know of people like this. My wife has friends in Canada where it's like literally all of them are professionals. There's like 4 or 5 families in one house. It's like, what the hell? Like, that's insane. Like, if you're a professional, you should be able to afford a home, right? It shouldn't be ridiculous like this. But that's what's been going on. And this is because of this government waste. They're spending $2 trillion over what they're supposed to be spending a year. And all of this is going to ridiculous programs that they were doing, the USAID, Department of Education, all these ridiculous things. And check this out. This shows you how much waste was going on.
One of the things that we discovered pretty quickly was there was about 2,900 people that were supposed to work in the building. Turns out only 49 were showing up full time.
Wait, no, slow it down. 2,900 people? How many showed up?
On average, the highest that we saw on a 5-day work week was 49 people.
And look at that. This is like a massive government building. All these people are getting paid money. None of them are coming to work. Like none. What are they doing at home? Are they just sitting around? Are they actually doing any work? Why are we paying them? This is why we can't afford anything. The reason why interest rates are so high in houses is because of all this waste, right? They don't ever tell you any of that stuff, though. But anyway, we're going to get into, like I said, we're going to get into a ton of stuff. I wanted to talk about this Great Pyramid thing in a minute here. This is absolutely astonishing. I'm sure some of you guys want to see this. And I was going to do a video just dedicated to it, but like the way that this website works now, it's like I can't even do that. Like, it's so ridiculous. I should be able to put up a video on any topic, and if it's really good, it should go viral like it used to in the old days. Now I gotta, like, I can't even do that hardly. It's like I'm so limited. It's like anyway, I don't need to complain. I'm sure you guys don't want to hear me complain anyways. But like I said, we're gonna get into a ton of stuff. Let's just get into that next. But first of all, we're going to get into the whole thing with the Great Pyramid because this is crazy. Let me show you some pictures of this. Okay, let's get to one. So, okay, right here, this is the pyramid, this triangle right here. This is what they found beneath it. This goes down 2 kilometers. Wow. 2 kilometers in the ground, there's structures built under the pyramid, bigger than the pyramid itself. Wow. Down into the ground. You're going to tell me that some people from thousands of years ago built this with structures that go almost like go a mile into the ground with no technology. They just used a little chisel. Oh, I made a chisel. Oh, I dug the ground a mile down with a shovel. They don't even have shovels back then. Are you kidding me? Clearly, this was some advanced technology that built this thing. It's not rocket science. We're going to get into that in a minute. I don't know why they keep trying to convince you that just humans made that with like little chisels. Oh, bronze chisel. Oh, look, you got it. It doesn't even cut the granite rock. You know, so ridiculous. Anyway, before we get into all that, and we're going to get into some funny clips as well. We got this hilarious Amazon clip and some other stuff. First, I'm going to mention food supply, 25 years shelf life. Link is in the description. 4 weeks worth for $247. You're going to definitely want to get that. If you have not already, I don't know if you noticed, there was something that just came out today. Let me show you this. France issues survival guides to every home. It's just kind of weird, you know? We had the UK do that last year, handing out tins and other food that you might need in case something happens. And now we have France doing that today. And, of course, you know our president's been trying to stop all these wars. And it looked like it's going the right direction with the Vladmeister, right? The whole thing with Russia. Well, apparently Ukraine's not very happy about, you know, things like peace talks. And they just sent some drones over there today, you know, to take, of course, out one of their, you know, biggest, bases or something. So, I mean, it's like, come on, man. It's like ridiculous. The biggest player wants to end it. And you got this little dude, literally, I mean, he's short. There's Lensmeister there who likes to dance on TV. He wants to continue it. It's insane. What is going on here? You know what I mean? Like, at any rate, you might want to get prepared. Who knows what's next? Link is in the description. 4 weeks worth for $247. They have other options. 3 months worth for something as well. Also, you got this book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Great-Grandfather Lived Without Electricity, How to Build a Cellar, Do Things Around the House, like they did in the good old days, hundreds of pages illustrated. You're going to need that before the electricity goes out, right? For an extended period of time. Get the printed version, $37. You're not going to be able to buy it at Walmart. So you might want to buy, of course, France is giving it out. They're giving out a small one. I think it's like 20 pages. Mine's like 200 or 300. This is only 20 pages, so I don't think it's going to be as good as mine. But yeah, link is in the description. It's got really good reviews. A lot of people in the comment section will tell you that as well and attest to it. And let's get back to this. So we're going to talk about this new discovery with the Great Pyramids, apparently, and this is ridiculous. I was thinking there was a lot down there. Remember, I've done videos on this like over a decade ago, where I believe that there was even a different dimension down there, and I think this is where they put spirits. I don't think this thing is like advanced. This is not something made by people thousands of years ago. Something with huge technology or something, like God himself or something, whatever built this, right? It was not made by standard humans with silly tools like, oh, I got a chisel. Give me a break. I mean, it's a mile down. I don't even think we could build this today. The tolerances on the pyramid are ridiculously accurate. I'm an engineer. From what I understand, the tolerances on the pyramid are twice as narrow as the standard tolerances used today in engineering, all right, in construction. That's one. Two, you got these columns that go a mile down into the ground. I don't even think they could build that. How far does the Super Bowl or Super Bore, what is that thing? I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's in Russia. Super Cold Bore. I don't even know how you call it. Here it is. This is I can't. Tongue twister. Kola Super Deep Borehole. That's what I was trying to say. That thing goes how far?
Shawnee, I don't think they really know how old the pyramids are. There's been so many different definitions, but there is water damage on the main one, and they think maybe the Nile flowed through there before it changed course, because there's water damage on the pyramid, like erosion. I don't know how true that is, though.
It goes 7.6 miles into the ground. So we have technology to go 7.6 miles into the ground, right? This was like an achievement back in the 1980s or 1979 or something like that, right? So we're talking about multiple columns underneath the Great Pyramid. Let me get the picture here. We're talking a mile down. Like, what? Imagine drilling all this ground out. Isn't it sand? How did they even do that? Like, what in the world happened here? How did they put these columns into the ground?
Shawnee, them coal mines in America, they're causing a lot of problems with sinkholes. I think you're getting a lot of drama with sinkholes because some of them old mines are actually on fire. I remember seeing that a couple of years ago.
And so this is from, let me show you what they did. So they have this synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography reveals details of undiscovered high-resolution internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Department of Electronic and Electrical Engineering. I had some electrical engineer friends in college. Department of Chemistry and Industrial Chemistry. Here we go. These are just footnotes. Submission received, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you got that there. Let's see here. So we were just talking about that. So this is the guy that was presenting it on his channel called Project Unity. We have here synthetic aperture radar is a remote sensing technique that uses radar waves to create high-resolution images, even in the dark or through clouds. Two processing signals received from a moving antenna. SAR systems emit microwave pulses towards the Earth's surface, and the radar antenna captures the reflected signals. Of course, the reason why they had to use technology like this is because the government there in Egypt doesn't exactly like people doing research on the Great Pyramid. So using technology from above was ideal in this case. Unlike traditional radar systems with stationary antenna, SAR reuses the motion of a radar antenna over a target region to create a synthetic or virtual antenna that is much larger than the physical. Okay, so it makes high resolution pictures. I think we have some of them here. Let's see here. Where did it go? No, where is it? Come on, man. Here we go. Here's some. This shows you kind of how they were able to look inside of it right there. Actually, they had some other ones as well. Where were they at? I'm trying to find it. Actually, I have the document here as well. Where did the document go? I have it around here. I think this is it here. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so this is the project. And, oh, yeah, I'm close up. So you can see that they're actually mapping out the structure inside the pyramid. Then
Okay, Diane, that works for me because I believe in a 7,000-year creation. I don't believe in we've been here hundreds of millions of years old. So the rumor was the pyramids were 12,000 years old, and that's impossible with a creation year, a creation cycle. So very interesting. So it's in our timeline, so I can trust it. Yeah.
they had 8 cylindrical structures identified through the tomographic images, appear to be vertical wells. So they're wells. And this was really interesting that they're wells because I was watching some videos. There's a lot of videos about the Great Pyramid, obviously, on YouTube. Yeah. And it was really bizarre that some of these big channels actually covered some of this. And some of their thumbnails from like a year ago are literally showing like stuff like this because they've seen other pyramids and because there's lots of pyramids around the world. Apparently other pyramids also have these wells like this. They go down and they were theorizing.
We got a pyramid in Australia. It's called the Gympie Pyramid. It's up in Queensland.
I think, well, maybe that's what's under the Great Pyramid. They were completely right. Some of these channels like Riddle here and A Bright Side. I'll just play this clip real quick. You'll see what I'm getting at.
What's interesting, inside, it's made of dolomite and granite, which is a little weird. After all, granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, and its processing takes 10.
This one's actually, so this is what.
Hey, beautiful people. I'm so excited to spill the beans about something that's totally transformed my hair care game. The Australian Organics Miracle Mega Bundle. The secret ingredient to every single one of these products is argan oil.
What do you want to be when you grow up? With ease, expertise, and great value. Know how to grow with UniSuper.
This is one of the hardest stones on Earth, and the tolerances are unbelievable on these. This would be almost impossible for us to build today. And he's talking about the electrical conductivity of it, and that perhaps there was some sort of electrical aspect to this as well.
10 times longer than the processing of limestone abundant near the pyramid. Granite was brought by boat from a quarry in Aswan, located 800 kilometers from the construction site. Indeed, you must admit it's unlikely that the Egyptians would have bothered so much with a material that's difficult to transport and process for the sake of an ordinary tomb. It's assumed that the choice of such a complex material is justified by the presence of quartz and metal crystals in it. At the same time, granite emits a small amount of radiation, and most importantly, it's a good conductor of piezoelectricity, a charge that's created using crystals.
As you can see there, so there could have been some conductivity aspect to this, which gets back to that whole topic we've discussed before.
There's no smoke stains on the roof of the pyramids, so they got there some sort of light.
Of taking electricity from the ether, because actually it actually changes in voltage very quickly as you go up higher elevations, but it comes down to if you're standing on the ground or not. So I did a video talking about that before. You can actually get you can actually run an electrical motor, like a little electrical motor, by simply bringing a wire up into the sky. You take a drone, put an electrical wire on it, one end, and the other end on a electrical motor.
Glare, I hate
it. Take that drone up into the sky, it will start spinning. Your motor will start working. You will get the charge literally from the atmosphere. And there's people who have done these experiments before. So there could have been some aspect like that. There's also the aspect, and this was from Brightside here, where they talk about water being underneath. And this, I think they're correct. And this actually might explain these structures that we were just showing you.
The story becomes even more intriguing as this trench appears to be part of a larger, more complex hydraulic system within the Jupiter complex.
Look at that. Look, see, you see, this is not, obviously this ain't the Great Pyramid, but this is some other pyramid structure where they know that they had these sort of aqueducts underneath. And that appears to be what this was as well, right? Some massive columns that can hold water. So this may have something to do with this electrical. I don't know how this works. I mean, maybe.
I can't remember I said there's water erosion on the pyramid. I wonder if it's to do with that.
Sometime I'll
Sounds
take
like
some time to look into it more. But it looks interesting. It looks really interesting. You can see kind of what's going on there. I thought I would just mention that because that just came out recently. You can go check out that original video. The video is over on this guy's channel, Project Unity. The other ones I was showing was on Riddle and what was that? So Project Unity is the main one. This is Project Unity with this new discovery. But I just thought it was funny that some of these really big channels actually were getting the stuff right. You know, Riddle and Brightside. At any rate, so you got that. I just wanted to get into that a little bit. But it's just kind of funny, some of the stuff going on around us right now. We have, of course, I wanted to show you this clip. This is pretty funny. We have a lady apparently delivering Amazon packages to a particular home very often and is very upset about it and lets them know through the Ring doorbell. This is pretty hilarious. Check this out. You saw how many packages were there, right? That was like 5 or 6 boxes. So this person apparently buys tons of stuff, never goes to the store, maybe lives in their house. Maybe they're like still...
Okay, them boxes sounded empty to me. Watch it again.
We have a lady apparently delivering Amazon packages to a particular home very often and is very upset about it and lets them know through the Ring doorbell. This is pretty hilarious. Check this out. You saw how many packages were there, right? That was like 5 or 6 boxes. So this person apparently buys tons of stuff, never goes to the store, maybe lives in their house. Maybe they're like still living back in 2020. Like, I don't want to get something. Let me stay in my house for forever, you know? I'm trying to think. The shock jock, I forgot his name. He was doing that. Anyway, let's play this more.
I've been waiting on this day to tell you how much I hate this fucking house. The waters, all the shit that you order, all of the shit. I hate it. I hate this house. I hate that you order shit. You are the fucking laziest fucking house.
Oh my goodness, dude. And she just keeps going on. And then she tells him to get in his car, go to Walmart and buy it.
Okay, my bad. I thought it was a he. I did.
I wonder if she got fired for saying all this stuff. You might have got fired for that. Yeah. You don't want to be on social media showing that stuff, do you? You'll be fired the next day. What is going on here? This is weird. What the heck's going on here? This is
Diane, I've been following this guy on YouTube, and he goes and investigates towns in the Appalachian Mountains and all that. And he actually brought up, he went through Detroit. I forget what he showed, but he goes and walks the neighborhoods where they're doing it tough. And Detroit was one of them.
It's weird. What? Someone stealing? What the heck? I hadn't seen that before. That's pretty funny. Probably some kid in there. I don't know. It's so funny, dude. All right. So, anyway, so you got that stuff. You have here. I have another clip here of what's his name? Actor Ice-T. Apparently, his car's registrations are all expired. His driver's license expired. He's trying to go to the DMV to get them renewed, and he gets pulled over by a cop in the process of trying to do this.
Officer, let you know you'll be recorded, okay? I'm headed to the DMV. That's where I'm going to get on my registration and everything. You know your registration expired since 2021. That's where I'm going. So you have your license expired as well? That's why I'm going to the DMV. Give me my paperwork here. Fuck. Yo, don't touch me. Give me my paperwork. Get this on camera.
Legendary rapper and actor Ice-T, best known for his role as Detective Odafin
Yeah, he's a detective on Law and Order. Ah, yes, indeed. Of course, I think he eventually got that all settled. But I think that was from last year. At any rate, so you got that. It's pretty funny. But what else do we have? We have also Bill Burr on The View complaining about, apparently he has derangement now. He's complaining about Mr. Tesla. Check this out.
But is there anybody getting your ire up these days more than usual?
Nerds.
Yeah.
The nerds that own the politician, all these tech nerds that want to build robots because they don't know how to talk to hot women, they're gonna take over the world. take over. They are literally going to replace us. We're like beta right now. They're coming out with like the VCR. And I think Elon has got the rockets going because they realize there's other Earths out there. Yeah. And they're gonna trash this one, and because they don't have any concern for it, and they're gonna move on.
Does that even make any sense? They have no concern for it. The fact is, he's cutting government waste, and that is important. And he supposedly is environmental friendly because he's got these electric cars. I don't know.
Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is war, specifically war with the Russian bear. So I've already covered this in length. It took almost a whole program, but I summarized it because this is very important for us to keep in mind. Okay, essentially what this vision showed, and this is Byron, if you be ready, and he heard the words in this vision, the show has begun. Now, I believe that that's talking about the big war that eventually is going to be Armageddon, and that involves the Russian bear and the Muslim leopard. He said he saw a large ring with clowns amusing the crowd, and I think that that's what a lot of the TV and radio and things like that is doing. They want to keep the average person amused until they take over. He saw a Russian bear and also the Muslim, which is representing the leopard, or the leopard is representing the Muslims. And then he saw an angel ripping pages out of the Constitution, setting them on fire, and the clowns, meaning the people, poured gasoline on it. So the Constitution, our beloved Constitution, is going away. Then the bear knocked the book out of the ringmaster's hand. In other words, Russia will be responsible for destroying the Constitution. The parrot represented the people that just repeat what they hear. You know, I see these guys that talk to people on the street. They don't know what's going on. They just repeat what they hear on CNN and the other light. He saw 3 monitors. The first one had war without bombs. In other words, that's war of words. That's where we are right now. Second had war with bombs. And I don't think that's talking about the Russia and Ukraine. I think it's talking about wars after that that explode and get bigger. Then he saw the third was people running for their lives. And then the ringmaster, or Jesus, returned. The tent went black. Then that's the sun going out for 72 hours before Jesus returned. Then the blinding light, or the morning star, destroying it all. I think that this is a real good overview of us. Essentially, when it says the show has begun, he's basically saying Armageddon has begun. I think it started, as I've said many times, February 22nd of 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine. And while there might be some kind of a ceasefire, there might be some kind of an agreement saying that we now have peace.
All the women on The View, they're getting sued for millions of dollars. About time too.
End of the day, when Russia invaded Ukraine, you watch. It will eventually escalate into Armageddon. All right, now, for you to understand this, I'm going to read a couple of scriptures here. I know people don't like scriptures. That's sad, but that's very important. So I made this DVD many years ago. And by the way, you can watch it at watchprophecyclub.com. But it helps you to understand. If you look here, you see the Muslim leopard, the American eagle's wings, and then the Russian bear, and in the middle represents the world government that is coming. And by the way, you can watch this whole thing, which is, I think it's a 4-hour DVD. Watch it instantly, $20 a month or $200 a year, over 300 different DVDs at watchprophecyclub.com. But today, what we're talking about is the Russian leopard and the eagle's wings and the Russian bear. We're talking about those 3. All right, so let's go on. So I've covered this a lot of times, but this is complicated for a lot of people, so let me take a second here. Okay, first of all, Daniel 7:4. This is Daniel's vision of the last days, and this is probably one of the most important parts in Bible prophecy in the entire Bible. Essentially, it shows the last 4 superpowers that will be ruling the planet just before Jesus returns. So he says, the first thing I saw was a lion that had eagle's wings. It's not talking about England, the lion. It's referring, the whole point is to show you that it's talking about America. The eagle's wings came out of the English lion.
That's true.
And it also says he made it stand upon the feet as a man, meaning that God made a nation, America, out of a nation that was not a nation. And God gave America a man's heart. And of course, we are a nation that has a heart. I mean, we don't even punish our own criminals like most other nations do. So the first one would be America. The second one would be the Russian bear, and it would say, arise and devour much flesh. This is not talking about the past. This is talking about in the future, once the Russian bear is made. And of course, the Russian bear historically has already killed a bunch of people, but it's nothing compared to what they're going to do in the future. Now, let me call your attention to the third one. The third one is the leopard. And I've talked about why the leopard is talking about the Muslim faith or Islam. And it has 4 wings of a fowl, which represents 4 land masses. Each of those land masses has a leader. That third beast is not in place and has not been in place. So we're not totally to the world government yet, but the world government is the 4th beast. Dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, had great iron teeth. I spent an hour talking about this, but let me move quickly. Then I saw 3 of the first horns picked up or pulled up by the roots. Now, what it's saying is that they're going to form a 10-nation world government, and out of those, there'll be an 11th rise, and then that this 11th will overcome 3 of them, making a total of 8 nations. And then it says, and the eyes of that man, which is the Antichrist, will have a mouth speaking great things, which confirms what he was told in Revelation 13:2. Now, essentially, let's get to the point. The point is, you'll see America, eagle's wings, the Russian bear, the Islamic leopard, the third beast has not risen yet. And then you'll see a world government. We haven't got to this one yet. However, this particular, at the conclusion of this October the 7th war, where there's Israel, we could very, very possibly see the rise of the leopard with maps, lines on the maps redrawn. All right, now, that's the point I want to make today as we move forward. A rise.
That does look interesting, Shawnee. Hang on. Okay, here we go.
Laugh. All right. Menon, Rev, can you share King Charles's statement about taking us back? We need a good laugh. All right, here it is. King Charles has announced that the great American experiment has failed and will be taking back the United States of America and restoring it to its former glory under the monarchy. All that next and Russian propagandists will be hung from the Tower of London. That's what it says. And that's him and his glorious regalness. So King Charles has announced that the great American experiment has failed and he will be taking back the United States of America and restoring it to the former glory under the monarchy. And shouldn't we rejoice? Right? Shouldn't we rejoice that this is going to happen? It's fantastic. It's lovely that King Charles, really, he's putting it out there. He wants to make America great again. He wants to restore you to your common. He wants to restore you to the Commonwealth, and take care of you. It's lovely. We were talking yesterday in our book study is it
being sardonic, or is he really agreeing with this?
It's Hamilton that has the amazing song sung by King George the Third, I think, where he talks about you'll be back, wait and see. But as I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking about, because it's a joke, obviously it's a joke. King Charles never really said this, but in the Twitterverse, everything is possible. The thing that popped into my brain was actually something this morning. So Belle of the Ranch did a video. I don't know if it was last night or this morning.
Okay, so he's on board with this by the sounds of it. He's not a very wise Christian.
I watched it this morning, but it was about Ukraine and Russia.
He's Canadian. He says a boat. He doesn't say about. He says a boat.
And she made mention of, is it the Bucharest Accords, where the United States and Great Britain both said, if you get rid of your nuclear weapons, if Ukraine gets rid of your nuclear weapons, yes, you'll lose your nuclear deterrent, but we promise to defend you from those foreign invaders. So if Russia or Belarus or any of your neighbors, Poland, ever decide that they're going to invade you, we will be there quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah, that's sarcastic, not sardonic. That's a different word. I think he's on board with this, Shawnee.
Need to take care of you. We didn't, right? We didn't in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea, and we haven't been there to actually, personally defend Ukraine. We've sent supplies, we've sent material.
It's not your job to defend Ukraine. You're in Canada. Stay out of Ukraine.
But we haven't put boots on the ground. And I thought, well, there's a broken promise. We're not going to live up to that one. And then with all this, this Trump talk about tariffs on Canada, and he did an interview last night with Laura Ingraham, and I watched this morning. I was listening to The Bulwark, and their take on that interview where Trump was going on about, Canada, we cheated on the trade deal. So he put in place, back in his first term, he tore up the NAFTA agreement, and sitting down with Canada and Mexico, they came up with the USMCA, the U.S. Mexico Canada trade agreement, which is still in place today, and I think it's due to be renegotiated in 2026. But Trump was, with all these tariffs that he's putting on Canada, they're not part of the USMCA. All the Trumps he's putting on, all the tariffs he's putting on Mexico, they're not part of the USMCA. But he's doing it because Canada and Mexico cheat. So obviously Canada and Mexico are not living up to their end of the agreement. They're part of the contract. I thought about some of the news, the reporting that has been done, especially during his first term as president and the election that preceded it, where contractors who had contracted with him to come forward, who came forward, contracted with him to build things for him and to install things for him in his hotels or in his casinos, that they never got paid, or they got paid pennies on the dollar, that he would just simply rewrite the contract. He'd rewrite and then just pay them what he wanted to pay them, as opposed to what they were legally due.
All these big pile up on my desk, they look like a mouse. All the young kids run around, I can hear their stomachs crack.
And of course, last week, that I went to a museum where I was blessed with an opportunity to learn more about the Mi'kmaq people and the relationships that the Mi'kmaq have had with the British Crown in particular, and how we have a 300-year-old treaty with the British Crown. It's going to be 300 years this year. 1725, it was first signed, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And how the British Crown, we did not live up to that. And as a matter of fact, we still to this day, we fight it tooth and nail. Don't really want to honor those contracts. And anyhow, yes, it started off as a joke, but my brain did what my brain did, which was, take it and twist it and find irony in it or find a lesson in it. And the lesson.
Okay, this guy's not being sarcastic. He dead set supports what he said. So I'm going to leave him and go back to Stan.
See a world government. We haven't got to this one yet. However, this particular, at the conclusion of this October the 7th war where there's Israel, we could very, very possibly see the rise of the leopard with maps, lines on the maps redrawn. All right, now, that's the point I want to make today as we move forward. A rise devour much flesh. Now let's go to some of the headlines. Putin issues U.S. list of demands to achieve a 30-day ceasefire. And he says, look, Ukrainians have been beaten back on all fronts, and at this point, they can't get out of this. In other words, West and Ukraine has to realize that Russia has defeated them, and that Russia is holding all the cards, and that Russia is going to dictate the terms of the peace. And I think Russia is trying to be nice about it, but essentially that's what they're saying. Okay, so it says that Russia wants guarantees during this 30-day ceasefire. In other words, a 30-day ceasefire is normally not good for the winning party. It's good for the losing party to give them time to take a breath, to rearm, and to get ready to fight again. So he says Ukraine will not conduct a mobilization and will not train soldiers and will not receive any weapons. That's point number one. If Russia agrees to the 30-day ceasefire. Point number two, Ukrainian forces could use a ceasefire period to regroup, receive more weapons, train fresh recruits. They don't want that. Also, systems of control and verification to monitor a ceasefire are not in place, but should be agreed. So the Russians are saying, yeah, we agreed to the ceasefire, but it can't be to just allow the Ukrainians to get ready to fight more. It has to actually head toward a stop. Okay, so Witkoff has now gone to Russia, and they said, okay, this is their terms. So Russia provided Witkoff with the terms for the Ukraine. If there's going to be a stop to this, this is what Russia wants. One, Ukraine cannot join NATO at any other time, military bloc, anything. And Ukraine must agree to be denazified. Remember, I showed you a picture of a World War II helmet with the SS on it, and then a modern Ukrainian helmet with the SS on it. I'm telling you that Ukrainians are Nazis, and that's one of the big, it's not all, but it's one of the big reasons Russia invaded, to get rid of the Nazis. They are the problem, the scourge of the earth, okay? And that's who we fought in World War II. Russia's still fighting them, but we switched sides, thanks to Biden. All right, anyway, Ukraine must agree that the territories now added to Russia from the conflict are Russian forever, and there be no deployment of foreign troops on Ukraine territory for any reason. In other words, no boots on the ground. You want to stop fighting? Here's what we want. We want you to denazify. Well, why is that not something that they could do? I think they could do it. He goes on to say that Ukraine stated flat that Ukraine refuses to give its bid to join NATO. Well, we've got an answer for that here in just a second. Henry Ford said, if there's any one secret to success, it lies in the ability to see things from the other person's point of view and to get to that point of view. Meaning, Russia is trying to see things from Ukrainian point of view, but Ukraine doesn't want to see things from Russia's point of view. Both has to see things and to work together to get past this. Next article. Okay, so again, the whole point is war. And this is talking about war between China and Taiwan, possibly. This is a big boat that China has built to be able to offload its military equipment on Taiwan, should it want to. Let's go on to the next one. Back to Putin. Putin says Ukrainians face choice of surrender or die.
Okay, Shawnee, good night.
Russia tightened squeeze and cursed. So what the deal is Russia has surrounded the Ukrainians in the city of Kursk, and they're going to die unless they surrender. A ceasefire only benefits those who are retreating, Russia says. In other words, Russia doesn't have to have a ceasefire. Russia wants Ukrainians to be denazified. He wants them to actually lay down their weapons and the land that Russia has conquered, they get to keep, which is substantial. It's bigger than the state of Texas. It's almost like twice the size of Texas. That's the amount of land that Russia has conquered.
Wow.
He says the Ukraine war latest. Troops must surrender to spare their lives. As I said, that's where they are right now. Putin urges Kyiv to order troops in cursed region to surrender. And if they don't surrender, you're just going to kill them all. But it's going to be thousands of Ukrainian troops die just because they won't surrender. Now, let me say something. I think that the real objective, I think behind the scenes, if we could listen to the plans of the devil, because probably, can't prove what I'm about to say, probably Ukraine and Russia are both serving up to the devil. They probably both dance to the tune of the devil and what he says. What makes me think that I think that there's a good possibility that there's a plan behind Russia and Ukraine. In other words, what if Russia and Ukraine, talking about the very, very top leaders, are actually working together with this plot to destroy America? You say, what? Okay, now wait a minute, follow me here. So what if
No way.
Russia doesn't like Ukraine and Ukraine doesn't like Russia? It's been that way for history for a long time. Okay, so we understand that, but it could be that they both have.
Shawnee, that's the red horse from the apocalypse. The fire, that's going all over the planet now. That fire.
Same boss. It could be that they do as they're told. So what if their objective was to get Americans to send all of our equipment, in addition to what we just left in Afghanistan, our military equipment over to Ukraine to the point that we had none, and even to the point to where we would put American boots on the ground spilling American blood in Ukraine, which would then give Russia the excuse they've been looking for to attack and destroy America. And
there's no way on earth Trump is going to send troops to Russia. There's no way he's going to do that.
1 hour as
they're setting up the peace and safety first. So they want the world at peace for a while, then they can spring their trap.
Dmitry Dudeman was told. He's saying, now, wait a minute. Why would they do that? Well, because Russia wants, you remember the vision that Dmitry was given where he said he saw the head of Russia, the head of China, and some other smaller Russian territories, and the angel pointed and said, this is what they're planning. But the way it'll happen is the way I told you. So I think that Russia and probably Ukraine, ultimate goal is not war between Russia and Ukraine. Again, I can't prove this, okay? But I wonder if it's not the real objective is to get America weakened, get America involved in the war, so Russia can attack and destroy America. Wait a minute. Why would Russia have to have America involved in Ukrainian war for Russia to attack her? I mean, can't Russia just sneak up and just attack and destroy us in 1 hour? Well, theoretically, yes. But then all the world would see what Russia did in destroying America without a cause. So this could be where Russia can say, wait a minute, America sent not only military equipment as we have, but America also sent boots on the ground against us, which we haven't. But if they can get America to do that, then that may be all of a sudden, wait a minute, they attacked us first. If you look at what Biden did, Biden, to me, all of the articles coming in, to me, it said that Biden is trying to give Russia the excuse to attack and destroy America in 1 hour. Everything he was doing. If you look back on those programs, the various articles I sent, that could be one of their ulterior motives. Let's go on. However, here's a little good news. Yesterday, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is now confirmed that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. Good. And I'm going to tie that together with something else here in just a second. And he has accepted that Trump holds all the cards NATO officials are beginning to accept the fact that this conflict is soon going to be over and the money laundering operation is over, also done. Granted, Root, now I do not know this next phrase is accurate, but assuming he knows what he's talking about. Granted, Rutte is still a slimy, Soros-owned politician, but it appears even he knows when he is beaten. Trump is dictating the terms for the agreement between Russia and Ukraine, and there's nothing the EU or the NATO officials can do about it. Rutte is admitting Ukraine membership is off the table is a massive step towards ending this war. Okay, well, as I read other sources, what they're telling me that the real, how do I say it? Sometimes things happen on different levels, okay? Right after Reagan got up and said, Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And Gorbachev did 2 years later, but he had to pull like 300,000 Russians out of East Germany in order to do it. And the agreement was, if you will pull down this wall, if you will pull all of your troops out of East Berlin and let Germany unite, then we promise that the West will not go 1 inch further east toward you. So they did it for security reasons, because Russia for somehow thinks that America is going to attack and destroy Russia. Well, why would they think that? Well, since then, America has been the one violating that contract. We've been the one that has been getting this country and this country more NATO nations moving that line eastward. And Russia has, according to the article I read, has obeyed their part of the agreement. It's been the West that has been the one that broke the agreement. Wait a minute, the West, we're the good guys, we're the Christians. Well, can you say that about Obama? Can you say that about Biden? No, you can't. Okay, so we've had some evil leadership. Matter of fact, we still have evil leadership. Okay, so the point is, it does look like a lot of our prayers may be getting us past this. It may be that the reason we're getting this good news, the reason that Russia-Ukraine is hopefully moving toward a ceasefire, that's what we want, that's what we want to pray for, maybe those prayers are being answered. Let's go on. Now, this was the big prayer, and I spent a whole program reading all this, so I won't read the whole thing again. But my good friend Michael Snyder said he heard the audible voice of God. And there's all the details. You want to pause and read it, you can. But he said in the dream, he says, Donald Trump is an old school businessman from New York City. He has a very unique negotiating style. When Trump is trying to get something accomplished and there is resistance, sometimes he will say crazy things or make various, here it is, serious threats in order to put the other side off balance. No, he threatens in order to get his way. And don't we all, okay? Don't we all say something like, well, if you do that, then I'm going to do this. It's part of human nature. He says, in cases where Trump has the most of the leverage, this approach has worked well. But here it is. In other cases, that such an approach will not be wise at all. And the voice specifically said, I heard in the dream a voice, if Trump follows his usual pattern of making outrageous statements and threats to the Russians, it'll backfire severely. Meaning, whole point was, I think that
Trump's not stupid enough to insult the Russians. He's not that stupid.
God was telling Michael Snyder to get his team and all the people who will listen praying against the Trump and the Trump negotiating team. Don't push the Russians around. Don't make them mad. If you do, instead of you being destroyed umpteen years, hopefully, at least 3 or 4 years down the road, the destruction of America may come sooner. He says, I was told the same thing by this voice multiple times with a lot of force. He says, we need to pray that the President Trump will make wise decisions. Now, up in the top right corner, you see fast track. So we have 1,450 people on fast track. That's the prayer team that prays for Prophecy Club. We also have another team called Fast Gap. There's about 850 people on that. We fast every Tuesday evening from midnight to 4 p.m. Wednesday afternoon. And I give them the prayer that I'd like for them to pray. Fast Track is about Prophecy Club, the Johnson family, and what God has called us to do. Whereas Fast Gap specifically is praying for America. So if you want to join that, you go to Prophecy Club, slide to the bottom, prophecyclub.com, and at the bottom you can sign up for Fast Track or Fast Gap or maybe even both. And you go anytime you want to. My promise is I never ask for donations. I never send product offers. This is only if you want to fast and pray for either Prophecy Club, America, or both. And I got our team praying for this. Matter of fact, for the last month, this is the primary thing both teams have been praying for. And every time I put out a prayer request to those, it gets answered. I mean, these days, it's hard to get two people together to pray about anything. When you got almost 1,500 people fasting and praying, that's like a sledgehammer in the spirit. And I think that our prayers, I mean, I can't take, and I'm not even going to try to take all of the blame or the credit, whatever you're going to say. But I know that a lot of it happened because of our prayers. Now, let's go on a couple more things here. This is the prayer that I asked them to pray. You can pause and read it if you want to. But I want to conclude with this. Okay. Latvian president says Europe should absolutely bring back conscription. What's conscription? It means, like, you know, when I was growing up, you had to join the military. But I was the last year where they had conscription, and then they went to volunteer, Army, Navy, whatever. It's all volunteer. But they're saying, what this is saying is that Europe, and this is not the only thing it's saying, Europe is preparing for war. My brothers and sisters, Europe is preparing for war. Now, what is all this saying? It's saying that we are on the cusp of a great big war. Let me show you something else. This is today. So it says Safe Haven Gold clears $3,000 an ounce for the first time. It says that gold pierced through psychological milestone $3,000 an ounce on Friday for the first time.
Okay, guys, he's plugging his stuff now. I'm out. See you tomorrow. See you, guys. See you tomorrow.
Building on a historic rally as trade tensions, U.S. rate cut bets supercharge his appeal as a safe haven asset. Spot gold was up 0.4% to 3,000.87 an ounce. Gold futures